Hello, everybody, and good evening to you all. If you're listening live to the podcast on the YouTube stream, I'm glad that you've decided to join me this evening. Or if you're listening on the podcast on Spotify or SoundCloud, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, I'm glad that you're tuning in as well to another episode of New England Sports Weekly. And as always, it's going to be a jam-packed show because it's New England and the sports landscape never sleeps, no matter if we're into a Patriots off season, Red Sox off season, good or bad, or of course, right now with the winter sports scene, everything is cooking right now. So it's going to be a great show. And of course, hope you're doing well, whatever is going on in your life. Hopefully, the new year is treating you well so far, as we're only a couple weeks into it. But nonetheless, we will jump right into it in the out of the box segment. Still, nothing in the new year as far as a sponsorship, though. But hey, if any of those lovely sponsors like 47 Brand, if you want to hit us up, we would love the sponsorship here, especially with the out of the box segment or with the rest of the podcast as well. Shameless, shameless, not plug, but shameless sponsorship begging right there. But I don't care. That would be pretty good. But anyways, the out of the box segment. We will start things off with the New England Patriots, who took a 35-23 loss to the Buffalo Bills on Sunday afternoon. And that loss, coupled with a Steelers and Dolphins win, knocked the Patriots out of the playoffs. So the Patriots season is over, and we will definitely dig in to that post-mortem here for the Patriots and go through their season and what is to be expected in the off season, what changes should be made and what are going to be made here in the off season moving forward for your Patriots. Now, another slight bit of Patriots news is that the Patriots coaching staff will be coaching at the Senior Bowl. It's the Patriots and the Falcons are the two coaching staff. So if you're on offense, I feel so sorry for you, college seniors, if you have to get Matt Patricia as your offensive coordinator, because we all saw what that did to Mac Jones and to the rest of this Patriots offense. So maybe it's an inside job by the Patriots. They can get a bunch of these college seniors, tank them at the Senior Bowl, and make them fall into like the third and fourth round, and you actually get some studs. I don't know. I'm just joking, guys. Just joking. But for those of you who watch the Netflix show, I think you should leave. You'll get that reference. But anyways, it'll be interesting to see how that goes here in, I believe that's what, late February is the Senior Bowl. Late February, early March is Senior Bowl time. Believe it's after the combine or before. Not sure on the exact time. But anyways, the Patriots coaching staff will be the ones down in Mobile, Alabama, doing the coaching. And in other big news, the Boston Red Sox, after getting really good news last week with the signing of Rafael Devers to his 11-year, $331 million deal tacked on with the 1-year arbitration deal. So Rafael Devers had his press conference today, but that good news was all for naught, I guess. Well, not all for naught, but it was overshadowed more or less by Trevor Story's news that he will have a surgery on his elbow for a procedure to place basically like an internal brace in his elbow on his MCL or UCL, I should say, in your elbow. And that procedure basically is like it's not Tommy John, but it's like a shorter version of Tommy John is what I've heard. Basically, it's to prevent you from having it. So instead of being out, 10 to 12 months or 9 months, you're out. Some athletes have been out 3 to 4. This one sounds more like it might be 4 to 6 months. So it's basically works out to be a shorter amount of time here for Trevor Story, but still it came at a bad time though, because in January, you're about a month to 5 or 6 weeks away from reporting for spring training. So I know that still seems like a while away, but that's 4 to 6 weeks is not that far off from spring training kicking off. And then, of course, at 4 months, that puts you at the beginning of the season in April without having a rehab stint. And then if it's 6 months, that puts you into June without a rehab stint. So we're talking about, we're lucky if that's the earliest that he can come back. We're lucky if he gets half a season to maybe even a couple months. So this could be in danger of him missing the season, because we don't know, obviously, if there's any setbacks or anything along those lines that happens to Trevor Story. So just another gigantic blow to the Boston Red Sox, who, after avalanches of just poor news for the Red Sox, from losing Xander Bogaerts this year, you lost Mookie Betts back in 2020 after he was traded away. So outside of that 2021 bright spot where the Red Sox were 2 games away from making it to the World Series, Chaim Bloom's tenure with the Boston Red Sox, if you leave out 2021, it's three of his 4 years here have been just putrid years. Well, I know obviously we can't say the 4th year definitively yet, but it's not starting off on a good foot. It is not at all, especially with the moves that were not made in the offseason and the talent drain on this roster, which we will get into as well. But the bad news is that Trevor Story is going to be missing some significant time this season. How long, we don't know. They aren't willing to put an official timetable on there. But so those estimates I gave you are just from players and media members that have kind of reached out to people that have done it before, or medical providers, and that's what their usual estimate is for this type of procedure. So Trevor Story will be out for a while here. We don't know how long, but it seems significant amount of time. So this team, which could ill afford to lose, probably at this point, Trevor Story, their second best bat in the lineup, that was a major blow. So it's going to be a lot to rely on the arms in that rotation and bullpen, which the rotation is kind of iffy as well, with some question marks there. So, man, it is not shaping up to be a good summer here as far as the Red Sox are concerned. Now, as far as in the winter sports scene, the Boston Celtics are getting ready to take on the New Orleans Pelicans tonight, and they will do so without Robert Williams and Marcus Smart in this game, as they are both going to be sitting out tonight's game. But they will also get the benefit of not having to play Zion Williamson, who this is finally one of the full seasons that we've started to see Zion. Well, I mean, when he's healthy, Zion's been very good, but this season the Pelicans have surprisingly been very, very good. So they are a surprising playoff team here early on in the season. But the Celtics will get a little bit of a break where they don't have to face Zion at home in the Garden. So we'll see how that one shapes out here. And the Boston Bruins have just been chugging right along. They have had 3 days off here as they just pummeled the Anaheim Ducks on Sunday, as they scored 7 goals, and they got a hat trick from Pasta, who is over the 30-goal mark now at 32 after that hat trick. So he is just on fire. And if it wasn't for Connor McDavid having a unconscious season there in Edmonton, we'd probably be talking a lot more about David Pastrnak being probably the front runner for the MVP if it wasn't for Connor McDavid, who's Jesus on skates there up in Canada. So we'll see, but they are rolling really wrong. They are off until tomorrow night, where they take on the Seattle Kraken at home in the Garden. So without further ado, we will dive right into one of our main dishes here, if you will, tonight. And that is the New England Patriots, who we mentioned off the top of the show, did suffer their biggest loss of the season, it was a winner get in for the Patriots in Buffalo. And of course, there was a lot going against the Patriots in this one. Of course, the Bills coming off that Monday night game where everything just got turned upside down with the Damar Hamlin situation. And actually today I did see the report that he has been released from the University of Cincinnati Medical Center and is going home to Buffalo. So he will be joining his teammates in person again. So everything is starting to look back up here for Damar Hamlin. But of course, Sunday, he was still in the hospital at that time, and we didn't know what was going to happen for Hamlin. But and of course, at that time, they were all playing for him, and they were getting positive updates at that time because things were starting to look in the right direction on Sunday. But of course, there was all that emotion for playing for Damar that day, and of course, right on the opening kickoff, what happens? But Nyheim Hines, the NC State product, returned a 96-yard kickoff for a touchdown on the opening play. And I remember I had just gotten back from placing a couple bets, and I just got out of the bathroom, and I looked at my phone as I was walking into the living room, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. This is ridiculous. I'm like, I expected the Bills to be playing all pumped and jacked up and this to be crazy, but for the first play to be taken to be a house call, that was just so that took the wind out of your sails. But at least as a fan, and you're like, well, this is going to be a long day. This is going to be like that playoff game last year, that night playoff game where they got bludgeoned. What was it, 41-10, and it didn't even seem that close. But to the Patriots' credit, they came right back, tied the game 7-7, and then tied it up again at right before the half at 14-14. So you're like, there's actually a shot, because the Patriots since 2020, since the Bills got Stephon Diggs and have become this, and obviously we have Josh Allen being a serious top 5 quarterback in this league, right along there with Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow and Rodgers and Brady, all up there with the best in the league. Ever since 2020, it's just been an absolute bloodbath pretty much every game since 2020. And it has not been fun to watch the Patriots play the Bills over the last 3 years here, if we're being honest. So this was a very good surprise to see the Patriots come out and actually put up a fight against Buffalo. But then, of course, after the Patriots they get a turnover of their own in the red zone after a fumble by Cook. It ends up being, well, and actually the thing was the Patriots gave up the ball, got the ball back, then they got in good field position in the red zone, and you're like, all right, let's just try to punch this in here. We'll take a freebie here, go up 21-14. And this was in the third quarter, and of course, they only get the field goal. You're up by 3, and you're like, well, this isn't going to hold long against Buffalo, but not. I didn't think it would be that quick, because then again, Nyheim Hines, after probably, you're like, all right, that was a really good return on the first one. Okay. Then what happens? Nyheim Hines returns a second kickoff. This one was more infuriating. This is where, I mean, I was already fed up with Cam McCord, who, if you don't know, Cam McCord is the Patriots special teams coordinator who's been there since 2020, I believe, right before the now offensive assistant, whatever his Morbius role is with this team, as far as Joe Judge. Joe Judge was the former special teams and wide receivers coach before he took the job with the Giants. That was his whole job. And then Cam McCord took over, and he had one good year. And then after that, it's all been downhill for Cam McCord. He hasn't had to worry about Nick Folk. And up until this year, he hadn't had to worry about his punter, but the putting position has been a disaster. You did get Schooler, who's probably going to take over as the captain of the special teams, who's been a bright spot in this sea of darkness as far as the special teams has gone for the Patriots. He'll take over Matthew Slater's role, who is expected to retire. Nothing official there. But that second kickoff return where you saw Miles Bryant just absolutely, he went for the air hug on Nyheim Hines. He had Nyheim Hines for a second and then was gone. A broken tackle. the Patriots just couldn't. That drive was just poor execution on the Patriots, where they had a couple opportunities to make the tackle and at least maybe stop them at midfield and maybe force them to kick the field goal. But then the Patriots defense did play decent enough until they had a couple of those um, long bomb touchdowns to Stephon Diggs and John Brown. Now the one to John Brown, that one was just that breakaway, but that was kind of a little unexpected. But the one to Stephon Diggs, that was the one that made me want to pull my hair out there. It's just, what are we doing? What are we doing? You are not double teaming one of the best receivers in the league in Stephon Diggs. You're just letting him go wide open one-on-one. You don't have Darrelle Revis out there in his prime, or Ty Law or Stephon Diggs out there that I would be like, all right, we'll put him out there on an island. And obviously it's going to be a battle because they're both top of the line corners and wide receivers battling one another. But I believe, what was it? Was it Jonathan Jones or was it McCourty that was out there? But needless to say, he shouldn't have been one-on-one. He should not have been one-on-one. I believe it was Jonathan Jones. Shouldn't have been one-on-one with Stephon Diggs. He got burned on that one. And of course, that's where you're like, ugh, man, this might be taking some wind out of the sails here. And of course, the Patriots still put up a fight there. They cut it to 28-23, but that was as close as it got, because right then and there, that's when you had the Jonathan Brown touchdown, and then the Patriots turned it over. So it was just the last quarter was just a nightmare scenario for the Patriots, who needed to win to get in. Now, kind of circling back around to the special teams there, that was the biggest reason that the Patriots lost this game, though, because if you look at it, there's 2 touchdowns right there that you just gave up for free. So there's 14 points that you gave up to Buffalo. So right there, you're only down 4 if Buffalo still gets those 2 long touchdowns. Let's just say, for the sake of the discussion, you're still well within that game if your special teams doesn't absolutely suck and give up 2 massive kick returns. It was so embarrassing. The special teams was embarrassing. And obviously it washes away what was actually a decent offensive performance. The Patriots actually had a capable NFL offense that at times was going toe-to-toe with Buffalo. Now, obviously, at the end of the game, they reverted back to what they were earlier in the season. But they were playing. That was probably the best game the offense had all year. You can throw in the Baltimore game, Cardinals game, really. I don't know if I put that in there, but I mean, it's a struggle to really kind of look and see, oh yeah, they had 5 to 7 really good offensive performances, top tier offensive performances. They really didn't, or even serviceable. And finally, they looked like a capable NFL offense out there. I don't know why it took them till the last couple weeks to put together good offensive performances or serviceable ones out there, but they finally pulled it out of their ass in this one. And it was just frustrating, though, because the special teams let you down in a moment where actually your offense was playing okay, playing pretty decent. So I was so fed up with how the special teams just let them down in this one. But I mean, and I don't want to be one of those Patriots fans like, oh, I didn't want him to go to the playoffs. I didn't want him to. I wanted him to get the higher draft pick. Like, how high were you going to get for a draft pick? When Belichick, with Belichick, your floor is 6 to 7 wins minimum usually. So you're not going to get a top 5 pick. The only time they ever had that was back in 2000, after the 2000 season when they went 5-11. Now, there are way too many other garbage teams in the NFL to even get close to a top 5 or even a top 10. So I was never, listen, would I like a nice high draft pick? Yes. I'm not stupid. Of course I want a high draft pick. Of course I do. I want as many bites at that apple of getting the cream of the crop impact superstar talent at the top of the draft. But still, it's about winning and getting. And I was never under the delusion this year that this was going to be this was going to be a Super Bowl contender. Hell, I didn't even say they were going to make the playoffs. If you rewind and you go back to what I did this at the end of August or the first week of September, before the regular season started with my NFL season preview, I told you the Patriots, this was the record. I basically said they're going to be 8-9, 9-8, and that's where they landed, right in that situation. And I said they were going to miss the playoffs and be alive for it, and that's what happened. And I know people, and trust me, I'm not happy that they're where they landed either, because this was about developing Mac Jones and this offense and getting them to move another step forward. But of course, we all knew after they hired Matt Patricia, who had been dogging all season long, and I'm by far not even the only one. Trust me, you turn on any sports radio station across New England, in Boston, anywhere across the 6 New England states, or hell, even you listen to some national shows, he's getting killed. But especially here in New England, he's getting absolutely roasted, absolutely killed. And he just this offensive coaching staff let him down time and time again this season. And for some reason, this last couple of weeks, they finally pulled it out of their ass and actually had a competent looking offense. And I don't know why they didn't do this during most of the year, but if for some reason they got backed into a corner. But it seems as though there could be some changes coming, though. As much as we ragged on it, and I know before I got to my show, I know of course a lot of the talk was people being with the hand wringing and just the pleading for Belichick to do something now and to make that announcement. And I know some people are starting to get a little antsy just because they haven't heard, oh, Matt Patricia's been axed or has been fired. And nothing official has yet been made either. But it does seem that there could be some changes coming to the offense, because there was a report earlier today from NBC Sports Boston's Tommy Curran was the first to have it, that Belichick and Robert Kraft have had their usual year-end meeting. And in Tommy Curran's story, basically what was reported there is that because if you remember, there was some speculation, or not speculation, but there were some thoughts that maybe Belichick would have to put his foot down and really go after Belichick as far as to kind of make him get rid of his friend, get rid of Patricia, to make sure he's not part of the offense. But it seems as though in Tommy Curran's story that Kraft did not have to persuade Belichick, that Belichick pretty much kind of knew this was kind of coming. He's smart enough to know that this offense was not running anywhere close to what to its potential. And now, furthering on to that report, there have been plenty of reporters out there like Mike Girardi, who's now with the NFL Network, formerly of NBC Sports Boston, on the reported, and this is a quote from his tweet, on reported changes to the Patriots offensive staff, team source said Bill knew it was untenable to continue to go forward with this configuration. He's all about end results. You can't deny they were. So right there, a team source is saying that Bill knew it was untenable to continue going forward with the configuration. So that's the key quote that I kind of want to take away right there. He knew the situation was untenable to keep moving forward. So that has to make Patriots fans breathe a sigh of relief right there. Because, man, it was going to be a long offseason if we didn't hear at least something come out of the Patriots with those meetings that he has with Kraft, or somewhere where if you just kind of heard status quo, which, I mean, the way things were going this season, I I had like maybe a 10% chance where I'm like, maybe they don't. I mean, my overarching kind of feeling was they were going to do something, but there's always the way that this season has gone, that kind of little voice in the back of your head, like, it might still happen. They might still keep Patricia around because he's Belichick's friend, he's his buddy. But it seems as though Belichick, who's got more football knowledge than all of the rest of the football coaches combined in America. So obviously, suffice for me to say anything of what he would need to do, but he came to his senses and knew that this could not continue going forward. And how could it? How could it? You're cutting out the legs from underneath your quarterback right at his knees. You're not doing him any favors to keep Matt Patricia around as far as anywhere on this offense. So I mean, if uh Gerard Mayo, who has gotten a request to interview for the Cleveland Browns defensive coordinator, and I'm sure he'll probably get some other offers. So if he leaves to take that title or take a head coaching job, one or the other, then I would be so happy to just say Matt Patricia if Belichick doesn't want to fire him, but wants to just slide him over to the defensive side, where that's where he spent most of his NFL coaching career before coming to head coach, was on the defense and was the defensive coordinator from 2013 or 2014 all the way till 2017 when he left to go to Detroit. So, and he did a good job there. Obviously, I liked Brian Flores better as their defensive coordinator, but nonetheless, that's more where Patricia is suited for, and that's what he should be doing instead of the offense. So if as long as Patricia doesn't walk into an offensive meeting room ever again in his life, I will be happy. I don't want to see Matt Patricia anywhere around the Patriots offense at all. At all. Don't don't even talk to Mac Jones. I don't care if you're still on the defensive side. Don't even speak a word to Mac. Don't speak any of that filth to him, because, man, it is you. You, I don't. Mac is a really good kid, and he's a really good core. I think he's got the potential to be the guy to help lead the Patriots into this kind of next step of the franchise, to contend to go deeper into the playoffs. Now, obviously, right now, they still need the other pieces to really go deep into the playoffs. But I think you have something with Mac, and he's a good quarterback. I think he got the short end of the stick on this one, where obviously this year he got injured. He had to deal with Matt Patricia as his offensive coordinator. He had everything going against him this season, and it just was just like in that quote, it was untenable the way it was going, because we saw what Mac Jones did last year in his rookie season. Was it the greatest rookie season of all time? Was it the best quarterback season of all time? No, but he had close to 4,000 yards, 3,860 or something like that, and had 23 touchdowns, 11 picks. He was a good quarterback in his rookie year, and that's where you knew as soon as Josh McDaniels left, and when they didn't go after Bill O'Brien, that things were going to be tight. They were going to be kind of thin around here on the offensive coaching staff. And then obviously when it was rumored that Patricia was going to take over, you're like, oh, this is not going to be good. And I think you didn't have to be a rocket science like Patricia's degree shows that he is to know this was not going to go well. And I hate to say it, but or anybody that's pretty much 95% of Patriots fans that didn't have their head stuck in the sand knew that this probably wasn't going to go well. And unfortunately, we were all right. But it appears that there's a little bit of movement here. And I think the other quote here that's kind of, or part of this story as far as after these meetings, is that there are now reports when it comes to Mac Jones that plenty of people in New England still believe in Mac Jones. So Mac Jones still has all these people that still want to see him succeed. So this is the quote from the story from Bleacher Report by Aaron Walsh. and it's stating that the New England Patriots quarterback Mac Jones took a step backward during his second season in the NFL, playing under an offense led by the combination of Matt Patricia and Joe Judge. However, plenty of people within the Patriots organization still believe in Jones, a source told the NFL Network's Mike Giardi. The source added that 2022 was a hard year in so many ways, in that there needs to be a better structure in New England, but that Jones is smart, tough, and accurate. So I tend to agree with that last statement, that he's strong, tough, and accurate, or smart, tough, and accurate, because and that's a trait that Belichick, that you can picture Belichick. That's kind of what he wants in his quarterback, especially the smart and accurate part there, and being tough, where just hang in that pocket, make those decisions. And yes, is the NFL moving towards the Patrick Mahomes, the Lamar Jacksons, the those mobile dual threat, Jalen Hurts, those type of quarterbacks? Obviously, Josh Allen is the best example. Well, Josh Allen and Mahomes, the two best examples right there. And Joe Burrow as well, that can make plays, that obviously can stand in the pocket, have evolved as pocket passers, but also can use their legs to make plays as well. But still, and Mac Jones isn't a rock there in the pocket. He's not Drew Bledsoe a la 93 through 2000, where just a giant statue can't move him. But and he's not even Tom Brady, as far as where Brady wasn't Drew Bledsoe, but he wasn't really quote unquote mobile. He had pocket mobility, where he had pocket sense to move around and avoid the sacks. That's something that Mac Jones has to work on, but we know Mac can at least run. We've seen him do that a few times this year. He's not Lamar Jackson. He's not Jalen Hurts. He's not Josh Allen. He's not one of those guys, but he's at least not stone legs. He might only be able to get into 1.5 gears, but he still has something, because Brady didn't even have a gear, and Bledsoe just had cement. So, but the point being here is that I think you can still win with Mac, and it appears that he's still got plenty of support in the locker room from teammates, and I would imagine probably, obviously, ownership loves Mac Jones. I know obviously there's a report about Bailey Zappi, but you can love both. You can love your starter, you can love your backup, you can love that whole quarterback room if you know that you have a good one. So it's I think because there was a sentiment starting to go around probably the last month of the season that maybe they might think about trading Mac. That, is this really the guy? How's this going to go? And obviously there were the quotes from Belichick about, it wasn't like this ringing endorsement that he had for Mac Jones in the post-game presser, where basically he just said Mac Jones is a good quarterback, he can play in this league, but never pounded the table like he did for Cam Newton. But I think people started, I personally think people really took that one way farther, way more out of context, because I never sat here and thought, oh, this is Belichick. Excuse me. I never kind of sat here and was like, Belichick is doesn't like Mac Jones, doesn't believe in him, or anything to that nature. I never thought that I never was to that point. Now, obviously, I thought maybe with the way things had gone in the season, about, because there also was the report that came out before earlier in the day today about Mac Jones had called other coaches that he had played with, other players, other personnel around the league, about the situation, about how tough this was. So, of course, are you going to be probably happy if you're Belichick? No. Do I blame him? No, I don't blame him either, because obviously it's a tough. You don't want your quarterback undermining you, but at the same time, I mean, this was a very difficult and unique situation that Mac Jones kind of got stuck into here this year with Matt Patricia. So as far as that, maybe do things like that, and the way maybe that Mac Jones had his histrionics out there on the field, which again, I stuck behind Mac Jones when all that happened, but Yeah, could that have caused maybe a little bit of a kind of a sore spot there with Belichick? Yeah, but I think Belichick, when things kind of cool down and when the dust settles there, he already basically in his statements with that we know from the meetings, it sounds as though Belichick knows that Mac Jones is going to be his guy. I mean, obviously, unless like some miraculous trade comes through that you can get a Justin Herbert or a Joe Burrow or obviously or like a Patrick Mahomes, if one of those type of quarterbacks that came knocking on the door, yeah, of course, yeah, they'd take one of those in a heartbeat. But in the real world, getting your head out of the fantasy clouds, then yeah, this is a good I like I feel comfortable moving forward with Mac Jones as long as you bring in an offensive coordinator, which it sounds like they're going to bring in an offensive coordinator. At least that's the way that it appears, just based off of that story from Tommy Curran and others that these offensive situation was untenable moving forward. So looking forward at that, who would you like to see come in? And I think maybe we'll put a Twitter poll out here that'll run through the week. Who do you think should be their main target? Now, of course, two of the big ones out there, of course, are Bill O'Brien, the former Patriots offensive coordinator, former Houston Texans head coach, and now offensive coordinator for the Crimson Tide, down in Alabama. And so, will they reunite with Bill O'Brien? Which there's been a lot of strong connections and rumors that the Patriots are rumored to be checking in with Bill O'Brien, whose contract is up in Alabama. And obviously, he was one of the big proponents of the two tight end set. Now, obviously, it helped that he had Rob Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez before, obviously, everything went completely south with him. And obviously, he was convicted of murder and everything that happened there. But of course, I'm talking about he was one of the bigger proponents of the two tight ends that they had in New England, obviously. So and obviously, Josh McDaniels was able to. I mean, when you give him Rob Gronkowski, then you're able to, hey, I got this super weapon here. But Bill O'Brien was kind of the one that brought him to the forefront. Remember 2011 when Gronk had his best year as a pro ever with over 1,300 yards receiving, 17 total touchdowns, and Hernandez was the perfect move tight end that you can move around. So it seemed like so he was perfect for that. Of course, maybe if you bring him in, you get more out of Hunter Henry. You get maybe you get something. I'm not asking for Pro Bowl season. Hell, I'm not even asking for anything ridiculous. Can we just get a serviceable year from Jonnu Smith? Because he's done nothing these last 2 years. He's been the biggest criminal on this Patriots roster, and I'm sure he's a very nice guy. But when I say that, I mean it jokingly, because all the money that he's pretty much stolen from the Crafts, from the standpoint that he's signed that massive deal. What was it, like a 3 or 4 year deal, and it was what was it, 50 some odd $1 million and 30 some of it was guaranteed. So he's done nothing for his contract, and yet he's still on this team and they can't afford to cut him. So he'll still be there. So maybe if you bring Bill O'Brien in, he'll be able to, with how well he did the first time around with the two tight end scheme, maybe he'll actually get their money's worth out of him. But I think Bill O'Brien is, for me, he's the one that I want to come back into the fold here with New England, because obviously he's familiar with the coaching staff. You don't have to worry about, and I know it wasn't the perfect ending between Bill Belichick and Bill O'Brien. Of course, there was a little bit of spat between them, but this is a coach that is a successful offensive coordinator between New England and with down in Alabama. Now, I know obviously people will bring up Bill O'Brien's moves as a general manager when he traded away DeAndre Hopkins for basically a bag of balls to the Arizona Cardinals. And yes, were his general manager moves the best? No, as a general manager, I probably wouldn't want Bill O'Brien running my team. But as a offensive coordinator, we saw how well he did with his stint with the Patriots and bringing in those and utilizing that two tight end set. And even in Alabama, he's done well. And he did get, as a head coach, he did get that the Texans to one or two playoff berths there. So he's, as a head coach, that's where we'd have to have a conversation. If I don't know if I want him as the head coach, but as an offensive coordinator, he is a very good offensive coordinator. And again, he's familiar with this Patriots team. He's familiar with how Bill Belichick operates. And then he'll be comfortable enough to kind of go with how the organization wants to at least fill in the rest of his offensive staff. But of course, it's and the other big thing there is he was there he wasn't there for a long time while Mac Jones was there, but he's worked with Mac Jones. He was there for the national title game in 2020. So he's been there long. He was there to at least kind of get to know Mac a little bit. So he has a little bit of familiarity with Mac. And I think they would work well together because they both O'Brien and Mac Jones, both are those type of people that want to run the more sophisticated offense there, where they're able to move guys around. They're able to kind of get the mismatch and not just run stagnant plays the whole time and just run these basic plays that the defense is able to kind of really get a good grasp of and really blow things up. So I think from in my opinion, I want Bill O'Brien as the offensive coordinator. Now, the other one that's kind of been thrown out there is at least the big name there is Cliff Kingsbury, who was fired from his head coaching job with the Arizona Cardinals. Now, of course, he formerly coached at Texas Tech, was part of that whole air raid offense down there at Texas Tech. But again, it's not something, he's not my favorite option. Now, of course, I mean, he does have a good young offensive mind. He's younger. Maybe some of the players might gravitate towards him a little bit here. I mean, I wouldn't be upset if they brought him in, but I think Bill O'Brien is more accomplished as a play caller in the National Football League. And this year was kind of so disjointed there in Arizona. I just wasn't impressed with that offense that Cliff Kingsbury has. And is Cliff Kingsbury going to want to come in here and is he going to try to rock the boat with Bill Belichick? No, I'm not saying Bill Belichick doesn't need all the yes men. And that's where I think Bill O'Brien, for me, fits also that mold, because he's a guy that's had his tiffs with Bill Belichick before, but he also knows how to work together as a team, but also not to just say Bill, no, to not just be a yes man to Bill like Judge and Patricia are. O'Brien would at least be like, no, this isn't working, Bill. We gotta move on to something else because we have a good quarterback here. So I that's where I think I'm right now. Obviously, I'm up for Bill O'Brien. I mean, if you can find maybe somebody out of the Sean McVay staff, because Sean McVay did give permission to all his Rams coaches to go interview and seek any other employment, because he's McVay's not sure if he'll be back coaching, which that whole saga is just something in of its own. But we're not going to get into that here. But that's just something to kind of look at. Maybe you get some of there, or maybe you try to get the next coach off of the Sean or the Mike Shanahan tree. Or a Kyle Shanahan, excuse me. Mike, his dad's not coach anymore, but out of the Kyle Shanahan tree, see what you can get from there as well. If you're going to go outside of the box there, maybe you go to one of those two avenues there as well. But it would definitely be definitely, for me, it's Bill O'Brien, or you kind of go and see what you can get out of the Shanahan or Sean McVay tree, because those are the bright those are two of the brighter offenses as far as offensive minds in the league right now. And you need, if you're Belichick, to kind of move forward with this passing game and move forward and realize that. Now, the other part of this is that you got to make the moves in the offseason, which we won't get into all of that today because there's still going to be plenty of the offseason to go here. But one of the kind of things I just want to touch on quickly here is that the Arizona Cardinals have supposedly put their star wide receiver and DeAndre Hopkins on the block, which we'll see if the Patriots actually pounce on him, because I know everybody wants to bring up, well, they went and got Randy Moss for a 4th-round pick. He was also a disgruntled receiver. Yeah, but Randy Moss at that time in Oakland, he was coming off a 600-yard season. He would just hit, what was he? Just hit 29. He either was 29 or just hit 30. So you're right kind of at that age where you can't, where at least NFL talent, you're like, I don't know what he's got left in the tank after taking all that beating. So that's where they kind of gave up on a cheap. But DeAndre Hopkins, on the other hand, after his PED suspension, comes back in, 9 games, has 700 yards receiving, 3 touchdowns. So he still shows that he's a number 1 wide receiver. So you're not going to be able to get him on the cheap. And the other part is, remember, things didn't end well with Bill O'Brien and DeAndre Hopkins in Houston. There were some not so savory comments that were made by Bill O'Brien about DeAndre Hopkins. So we'll see if the Patriots do want to bring back Bill O'Brien, unless those two are able to mend some fences there. I don't know if that's going to be the best fit. Now, obviously, I would take DeAndre Hopkins in a heartbeat. He would be your obviously de facto, not de facto, but he'd be your obvious number 1. He's on this team. So I'd love to see that, or maybe them go get a T. Higgins. But I just wanted to bring up that DeAndre Hopkins story because I know that's kind of been floated out there. So I would be in favor of the DeAndre Hopkins move if you can do that. I mean, why? I'm not going to say no to bringing in. I mean, is he a top 5 receiver anymore? Probably not. But you're still talking about a guy that still has all that ability there. We still saw how dominant he was coming off of the PED suspension. But sorry, still getting over the cold here, so I had to take a little drink here. But the it'll be interesting to see as far as what they do with their offensive coaching staff and what they do as far as to bring in pieces for Mac, and see if there are some maybe guys that are a year away from being free agents that they might kind of look at. Because if you look at the free agent wide receiver market, I know everybody's like, well, they're going to have all this money to spend in the offseason. Okay, maybe you go get an offensive lineman, which I wouldn't disagree. But you know who the number 1 free agent wide receiver target is? Jacoby Myers. Let that sink in. I love Jacoby. Jacoby, for me, if you had a Justin Jefferson, you had a AJ Brown, Jamar Chase, hell, if you even had a T. Higgins, like I said, because I think T. Higgins would be, because remember, for me, T. Higgins is what Stephon Diggs was over in Minnesota. Because remember at the time, because this was back in 2019 was Diggs' last year, people were more on the Adam Thielen train than they were the Stephon Diggs train. And that because remember, it took, I mean, Diggs had a 1,000-yard or a couple thousand yard seasons there in Minnesota, but he didn't blow up like he has with Josh Allen. So, but the point being here is that I think T. Higgins, who is stuck behind the shadow of Jamar Chase. Now, obviously, unlike the Diggs and Thielen, where I like Adam Thielen, but obviously the difference there is that there was a debate as who the number 1 there. We all know who the number 1 is in Cincinnati, and that's just because Jamar Chase is an otherworldly talent. But I think T. Higgins himself is a number 1 wide receiver talent. I wanted him coming out of Clemson, but that didn't happen. But T. Higgins is a guy that he is special. And it's just that he's stuck behind. The reason he doesn't have this monster stats is because he has to share the ball with Jamar Chase, who's getting the monster stats on that team. But I mean, in fair, they're both 1,000-yard receivers. But to me, if you brought somebody like a T. Higgins here, that would be awesome. But the point being is that unless you have one of those type of guys, the point being is that Jacoby Myers, God love him, he's awesome, but he should be your number 2 or number 3. He shouldn't be your number one. I love him, but he's not a number one wide receiver. He needs to be he's a good complementary piece. So I would want, so I still want to bring Jacoby Myers back. I just want them to add a top tier option there. And like I mentioned, we'll get into what some of those options are as we get into the offseason because it's only January 11th today. So there's plenty of time before free agency, plenty of time to talk about trades and everything before the draft. And then obviously we're going to have the NFL draft the end of April, beginning of May to talk about too for them to add some top tier talent as well. So plenty of time to get into that. Now, the other big story here is the Boston Red Sox and Trevor Story. Now, as you mentioned, the big news last week was that the Boston Red Sox had signed Rafael Devers to his massive extension, 11 years for $311 million to stay in Boston for the long term until he's 36 years old. So you locked up Rafael Devers, and the Red Sox actually did something good. They actually did something on the positive end. So after years of not signing homegrown talent, since basically John Lester, you let Mookie, you traded Mookie, you let Xander walk for nothing. So the sentiment was that Rafi was gone. Now, obviously, a week later, we know that's not true. And thankfully, I am happy. Don't think that I'm sitting here and I'm just upset that, oh, they signed him. No, this is what I wanted. I wanted them to sign Rafi. I am pumped that he's here. I'm so happy that Rafael Devers is here for the long haul now. So that's the good part. That's the good part. But after we thought maybe you're starting to climb uphill a little bit, you still knew that this was going to be a long hike because there was. It's not like you signed Rafi, then you went out and you got Carlos Correa after that whole debacle with basically $800 some odd million worth of contracts between the Mets and the Giants that have been wiped out. Now he's going back to the Twins. But the point there is that you signed him, but you still had a lot of work to do. And at the time, you had Trevor Story that was like, okay, you're looking past a little bit of the injury there. You're like, well, maybe you can go back over to short and you get some. And if he's healthy and has that power, maybe you actually you might be able to. I mean, I wasn't realistically thinking this, but some people are like, maybe you can get a wild card. I still think even before this, I still was not optimistic at all. I was anywhere but I because they didn't make any major moves. I thought, all right, they won 78 games. You're going to be in that range again this year. Maybe you can get the 80 wins or break even at 500. But after losing out on Xander but you sign Rafael Devers, you're like, all right, we're starting to make a little progress here. And then what did we hear yesterday? About 2:45, somewhere 2:45, 3:15 in that half an hour block. I see multiple updates that Trevor Story is expected to miss anywhere between 3 to 6 months and is requiring a surgery on his UCL to place basically an internal brace into his elbow. And you're like, why now? Because you're like, this is odd timing. And I've kind of honestly, my feelings have changed so much here, like in a few different directions. Because obviously, when it first came out, you're shocked and you're pissed and you're like, why now? And then of course you listen to some big leaguers like, well, you don't start throwing until like around right before Christmas, right after Christmas, kind of in that time frame after you've had a couple months off, depending on how deep you went in the playoffs or if you even played in the playoffs at all. But you're working out, but you're not doing baseball activity. Then you start to get back to baseball activity. And that's kind of like what some of that's what some guys were saying, is that they maybe at this time he started to throw again. And that's where he said that he started to feel this discomfort again. So you're like, okay, maybe I cut him some slack. You're not throwing all the time, and that's where you're kind of giving it rest. But this has been a known issue with Trevor Story. This was a known issue last year when the Red Sox signed him. And of course, now all the stories are coming out that this is why a lot of teams last year, why Trevor Story didn't have as many suitors as we thought. Because remember, Trevor Story last year was in a pretty good shortstop crop of himself when it was Carlos Correa, Trevor Story, and it wasn't Trey Turner. I'm trying to think of who it was last year. There was one other big shortstop that was out there at the time. But the point being is that there was maybe not as good as this year, but there was a solid shortstop crop that was out there last year as well. But that was we all thought maybe the Yankees might go and sign him. It was Corey Seager. It was Corey Seager, Carlos Correa, and Trevor Story were the big three shortstops. And then there was Marcus Semien, who was a shortstop, but switched over to second base. But the whole situation there is that Trevor, this was a known situation when it came to Trevor Story. We all knew it. It wasn't a secret, because his defensive metrics, as far as like his throws from short, are being affected by the elbow pain there that he was having. And yet the Red Sox went and signed him anyways, which we all had that harbinger in the back of our mind that this is probably going to spell the end of Xander. But we kind of hoped against hope there that after the Red Sox butchered the negotiations in spring training with Xander and basically gave him a 1-year bump to turn what the last couple of years that were left on the contract to 4 more years worth 90. So it just, after they insulted Xander, then that's when they did go back and they signed Trevor Story. But man, it was rough, just because you kind of knew what this might spell the end of. And obviously that's what happened. The Red Sox tried to play that, well, Xander Bogaerts was our priority A. He was our number one priority in this coming into the offseason. Of course, it just feels like they were just blowing smoke up our ass the whole time. And I mean, there's part of me that was kind of like, all right, usually, even though things behind Bloom just haven't been what we thought they would be, as far as just kind of what we got promised, and so far he's been well under delivered. Usually when the Red Sox ownership group comes out and says that they want somebody, that they want to bring in so-and-so, that usually they don't lose them. Usually if they want somebody, they're going to have them. But this wasn't the case with Xander. And now Trevor Story, who we all kind of knew he was going to be we all kind of thought, all right, if Xander leaves, he's going to be the replacement. And it was an awkward situation last year, because obviously the two players got along very well, but you knew that Bogaerts knew he was there for the job, and Story, who respected Xander, still knew that, because basically in interviews he's like, yeah, I'm second baseman for the time. And then when you kind of go into June, or when you go into the end of the year in September, that's where he had interviews out there with reporters, namely Rob Bradford of WEEI and Baseball's Not Boring podcast, and he's a friend of the show as well. You listen to some of those reports that he had, and Trevor Story talked about that he started to kind of feel, this was back in September, when he was talking about in June, he started to feel a little bit of discomfort in that elbow. So it was there. So the frustrating part that just pisses me off, it's just like, you had an opportunity where, yes, I know you wanted to rest, but if you wanted to give it a month of rest and it was still hurt and checked it out and it's still hurting you in October, get the surgery done in October, November, something along that lines, where you might have a shot of playing in June maybe if we're lucky in May, but you get enough of the season back. But now and it just seems so fishy how things kind of worked out, because it was like, all right, the Devers signing happened, and when you put together the timeline where Trevor Story, that all this kind of happened right before Christmas, right in the Christmas holiday, where that's where he started throwing. You started to feel the pain in his elbow, and that's where they're like, all right, you're going to have surgery. And then last, what was it? Not November, January 4th through the 6th, somewhere in those 3 days is where the Rafael Devers signing came announced. So now you start to put those pieces together where, okay, was this kind of like a panic move, but not a, I shouldn't say panic move that they were going to just lose Story, but from the standpoint of like, all right, we need to make sure we lock him up now, because now we really have nothing, and we don't want fans to just absolutely not show up and just have the hot dog and beer and popcorn vendors be the only ones showing up at the game, other than the rowdy college kids out in the bleacher section. But the point being here is that Trevor Story, we knew everything that was going on, and from all the reports, it seemed like he kind of knew in the middle of the season that, oh boy, and I knew they were trying to give rest. I knew they were trying to avoid surgery. But if this is something where it's getting worse, it's not getting better, and you're delaying the surgery until December, where I know, obviously I understand from this listening to major league players of how they ramp up and how they get ready for the season, but still, we're not talking about some back injury that felt like it had gone away. We're talking about this elbow injury, which has been nagging him for what, 2-3 years. And obviously we know this is kind of why some of the negotiations didn't happen a lot with some of the other teams, and with Trevor Story, and why they were kind of skittish about signing him. But and this is just a huge blow to this Red Sox lineup as well, because it was pretty much Rafael Devers and Trevor Story after Xander Bogaerts left. You had, and I know JD Martinez wasn't wasn't like a power hitting all-star this year. He hit for average. That's where he made his money this year, but the power numbers were way down this year. So he wasn't the same middle of the order force that when he hit the 43 home runs, 45 home runs when they went to the World Series and won it in 2018, wasn't the 35, 28 home run threat. So he wasn't the power threat that he has been when he first came over to Boston. But still, you lost him as well. That's a professional bat that you're losing. So now you're relying. So obviously, it's your two legitimate bats you have in the lineup were obviously Rafael Devers, who he's a no worse than top 10 player in the game as far as offensively goes, and then Trevor Story. Those were it pretty much, because we don't know what we're going to get out of Masataka Yoshida. Now, obviously, do you want to believe the reports that he's the Japanese Mickey Mantle? Or who is he going to be? Is he going to be this on base machine that can hit and has a little bit of pop and can surprise us and maybe hit 15 to 20 home runs in the year and be a pretty solid leadoff hitter? If we get that out of him, great. But we don't know. He's an unproven product in the United States. Tristan Casas he's a top prospect, and obviously coming through the minors, he was the guy that's been billed as the power hitting everyday first baseman that can not hit for power, hit for average, and just be a really good hitter. I mean, some of the comps because of the frame and the power were to Freddie Freeman. And God, if we get Freddie Freeman from all those years in Atlanta where he was a middle of the order force, I'll sign up every day, but we don't know yet. Now, he did have 5 to 7 home runs last year after he got called up. So we saw it's in there. The power's there. He's able to hit, and he hit some off of guys like Garrett Cole, and the home runs and were there. I know the average was down to 197. It wasn't what you want to see, but he was still getting on base a lot. He was still getting walked a lot. So that helped as well. So he was still getting on base. He wasn't what Bobby Dahlback was. So I know Bobby Dahlback, what he hit 240 and had the 25 back in 2021, but he would strike out a zillion times. At least in his first cup of coffee that he had last year, at least Casas had some ability. He showed the ability to get on base along with the power. Now, so if he can become something, okay. But and then obviously you're filling in the rest with whoever else because because now we're playing the waiting game to get some of those top prospects like the Marcelo Myers, the Yorks, the Rafael Sedena, Rafaela. But it's just frustrating though because you're the Boston Red Sox. You're the Boston Red Sox. You shouldn't be in a position where you have one superstar left on the roster. You should be able to afford to have Rafael Devers, Mookie Betts, Xander Bogaerts. You should be able to do what the Atlanta freaking Braves have done. The Atlanta Braves, who don't have anywhere close to what your payroll is, have been able to go out and lock up all their young superstars. And it's not like Atlanta just has some fringe superstars. They have really, really good stars. They have Ronald Acuna, who's a top 5 player in the game. They were able to lock him up when he was a couple of years ago, and they didn't have to break the bank on that one. They were able to bring back Ozzie Albies, another one of their stud infielders. They were able to re-sign Austin Riley, who is a little bit older than, who's what, a year or two older than Rafael Devers, or 25, but he's right there. But he's come on a little bit late, but he's another one. He's another power hitting middle of the order third baseman that's come on here, one of their prospects. You're able to lock him up this offseason to over $200 million. Then you signed, after you traded for Matt Olson, you signed him. So the core of that Braves team, they were able to keep them. And the point being is that if the Braves can do it, if the friggin' San Diego Padres, the Padres, who are a bottom-feeding franchise when I was growing up, and I sound like I'm 50 or 60 years old. I'm only 31. But I'm just saying, not long ago, the San Diego Padres were a bottom feeder. But yet the Boston Red Sox, before they signed Rafael Devers, had lost John Lester going back to 2014. And then obviously the big one was you had to trade away a perennial MVP candidate in Mookie Betts to the Dodgers. You got nothing. You got absolutely nothing back for Mookie Betts. I'm sorry, Verdugo. He is a solid player in the major leagues, but he doesn't come close to filling anywhere close to the shoes of Mookie Betts. And the prospects that you got back, you just DFA'd the quote unquote piece of the trade in Jeter Downs. You had to DFA him. The centerpiece to the Rafael Devers, to the Mookie Betts trade. You had to DFA him. The centerpiece of the trade. Let that sink in. And then Connor Wong is just he's probably just going to be a defensive backup catcher in Major League Baseball. That's what you got for one of the best players in baseball. Then you let Xander Bogaerts walk out the door. You didn't even try to trade him. Yes, would everybody have been pissed that you traded him? But guess what? You would have had something, hopefully better than what you got back for Betts. But you're the Red Sox, and until they showed that they would be willing to spend on one of their guys, which they finally did, I will give them credit for that. They finally ponied up for Rafael Devers. They finally did it. And like I said earlier, I'm happy that they did. I'm not complaining that, oh no, they signed him. This is what I wanted, that they signed Devers. But where I'm still, I'm not going to sit back and be like, oh, okay, all right, job's done. No, you still have egg on your face for not filling out the rest of this roster properly. After letting two superstars that you had in your organization that should be here long term Betts and Bogarts should be here long term. You're the Red Sox. You shouldn't have to penny pinch. That's what makes my skin crawl. It's like you have the money. You have the money. We all know you're willing to spend. That's why you brought Dave Dombrowski here from 2016 to 2018. And yeah, did maybe 2019 not go the way you thought it would? But you got the job done. And you've done it in the past too. You've been able to supplement. And that's what also drives me crazy. It's like, okay, you want to try to build this franchise for sustainability. Okay. But you know what's sustainable? Signing your homegrown talent. That's you can't just draft players and just let them walk all the time. You have to prioritize the ones and keep them. And you weren't doing that up until Rafael Devers. Finally, you corrected that trend, at least for now. But it's just so infuriating. This the way that they want to go about it. And then today, you had the Rafael. So an occasion that should have been happy, but because of the Trevor Story injury, that just absolutely was another stab right in your gut. As far as how this trash season is going to go for the Red Sox right now. Because listen, I hate to say that because I want to have meaningful baseball. I don't want to have to say that about the Red Sox. I want July to come and them still be within striking distance of a wild card spot, or heaven forbid that they can compete for the division. But I want to be able to be excited, but I can't get excited. And in Chaim Bloom's press conference today, which they were having for the signing of Rafael Devers to his long-term contract, which good for Rafael Devers, and I'm happy. Like I said, I am 1,000% behind this signing. So what should have been just a joyous occasion because of the Trevor Story, that put a cloud over this, and how just the offseason in general is gone after you lost Xander. You have Chaim Bloom has the gall to sit up in this press conference and say, well, Red Sox Nation, I know it's been tough. Basically kind of paraphrasing here for him, but basically saying, I know it's been a tough go here for you, and trust me, we feel the ups and the downs. We're here for blah blah blah, all these situations, but we feel it too, like you as the fans, and basically giving that pep talk speech as far as what was to be expected. Let me take a look here. Just trying to find that exact quote here from Chaim Bloom, so I can give that to you folks. But basically, what I'm looking for, that it basically was trying to give like that pep talk. He has the gall to kind of sit there and just tell you that, okay, no, we feel the pain. We're here with the cheers. It's one of those. Oh, it's gonna get better, folks. It's gonna be sunnier days, and just we know it's hard to kind of believe in that process, but with Rafael Devers, this is where the plan starts, and yada yada yada. Yes, and you have to have pieces, and yes, I don't from that standpoint, I don't disagree that having Rafael Devers was, and you needed to do that. You needed to do that to keep your status quo and have that building block. So it just infuriates me that he wants to try to give us that shit sandwich, put it in front of our face, and expect us to eat it and be like, okay, no, we're with you, Chaim. We're with you with this. We believe in you. I'm taking a bite out of this shit sandwich and I'm going to like it. No, don't bullshit me with your plan for what is your plan? What is it? Please enlighten me, Chaim Bloom, what your plan is, because I don't know what it is. Nobody knows. Do your bosses know what your plan is? At least you do have Devers back, but you basically, after when Bogarts left and then Trevor Story with his elbow, who's gonna play in the middle infield? Because I wanted Kike to stay in center field, at least the way things are shaping up, unless you want Brian Reynolds, but I don't think that's going to happen because you're not going to part with prospects. But you don't want to go trade prospects. You don't want to do that. So you're going to have to keep Kike. So if you bring Kike in to play shortstop now, and then you Arroyo, that creates a hole in the outfield. So you're plugging one hole while water starts coming in the other end of the boat. What is your plan? What is your plan that you tried to sell us on today? You don't have one. You don't have one. You're trying to BS your way through this. And I know he was never the actual GM down in Tampa. I get it. But it just infuriates me that you want to sit there and try to feed us this, oh, everything is fine sandwich. It's like, what is the plan? Just trust the process, basically. Like we're the Philadelphia 76ers, like, whoa, we're trust the process. We're going to draft all these good guys and do this. We're going to be the Red Sox and built from the farm system. It's like, no, we can afford to sign free agents and then supplement it from there as well. We don't have to be a poor franchise. We don't have to be a small market team. And I know that that whole thing got changed with them finally spending on Rafi because trust me, I know I sound like a broken record, but at least they have that part. They do have that part down. He's there. He's ready. He's going to be the middle of the order piece, but you didn't plan well enough to put legitimate pieces around him, because I like Trevor. I like Justin Turner, but he shouldn't be at this point in Turner's career. He shouldn't be your cleanup hitter. He should be like the sixth or seventh guy in your lineup. You should still have guys like Rafael Devers and Betts, and where you should have or had like another alternative plan where you're willing to trade maybe some of those pieces. Now, I don't want to give up for me. I don't want to give up Marcelo Mayer in that, or Brian Bale. Those are the two ones I really want. Casas, because you can find first baseman easier than you can shortstops and starting pitchers. I'm willing to at least maybe talk about Casas for something. But your plan, but the plan that plan today that you wanted to sit up there and tell us about, that they're what is it? Please enlighten us, please, because at this point in time, other than Devers, you've torn down. You haven't put a foundation up for this project. What you've done is actually Dave Dombrowski had a house. He built everything. He gave you pretty much a house to move into and walk into. And all you did was you tore everything down to the studs, and then you started cutting the studs down. And then the only thing that you left was you did leave one good thing in Rafi. Other than that, it's like, what have you done? What have you done to this house? You destroyed it. Oh, this is so frustrating. And I hate to say it because I want to see them succeed. I want there to be competitive baseball in July, August, and September, and have them fighting for a playoff spot. Playoff baseball is amazing. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Playoff baseball in this town is some of the best playoffs in any sport in this town. Now, listen, I am addicted to sports. So to make me choose from any of the big four is hard. Obviously, baseball and football are my two big favorites, but I'm addicted to. I love hockey and I love basketball. It's like I love them both. So, but to me, to me, baseball was the first one that I grew up watching. Was the very first one. So that's the one I really got addicted to. And in baseball, playoff baseball in Boston is just so good to watch. It's so fun and entertaining. But I want to be there again. But as things are currently constituted, this hike up the mountain it's going to take a bit. So maybe we're going to have to slog through this season, and then maybe they'll open up their checkbooks to guys like Shohei Ohtani, or if Juan Soto doesn't sign an extension with the Padres, and if he hits the open market, you go to Juan Soto, pair him up with Rafi, and then you start to build from there. If you get good seasons from Casas, and then depending on Marcelo Mayer's ready to come up next year, and then you pair him with Devers and some free agent signings, then we'll start to feel better about this. But it's just so infuriating because with the Trevor Story news, it was just such a downer to be like, you could have, I don't know why you knew this was coming down the pipe, but yet you refused. You wanted to try to slow play this, but now it's turned into another quagmire here for the Red Sox, where they're left with their pants down in this situation, as far as being embarrassed again, and this lineup is just, it's just going to be other. Rafael Devers isn't going to be able to hit this year. He's going to get the Barry Bonds treatment, and it's mainly because he's the only guy that's going to be able to hit in this lineup. So any clutch situation, and if it's Rafi that's coming up, unless the bases are juiced, they're probably going to walk him and put him on first, because he's their one superstar bat in the lineup that's left. Trevor Story's not going to be there to hit behind him anymore. At least depending on how things go, maybe if he heals up, he can come back in August. But again, it's just so frustrating that this is what we're left with. It's that they didn't have a plan C, plan D, or plan E or F. They just were like, oh crap, we knew Trevor Story had the arm problem, and we let Xander go out the door, but hey, we're left with our pants below our ankles, and now it's just embarrassing to watch this team right now. So it's just, I just am so frustrated with this team right now. It's just, I don't know how Chaim Bloom can sit there and just try to feed us that optimism. I know it's his job, I get it, but to sit there and kind of try to empathize with us today up there and try to say that, try to stick through with the plan that's there, when all serious Red Sox fans that haven't had their heads stuck in the sand over the last couple of years have been like, what plan? Where is your plan? You've bounced across the map so many times, you haven't stuck with an avenue and gone with it. So that's just what's so frustrating with this front office at this point in time. So boy, this is going to be a long season. So just buckle up and get ready for next offseason, where hopefully with some of those big ticket franchise players that are out there, with Shohei Ohtani, who is, I know people call, I know you can get hyperbolic here with Shohei Ohtani, but he is the best thing since Babe Ruth. He's the Japanese Babe Ruth, can hit 30 to 40 home runs in a season, is a legitimate frontline starter. So he's probably going to be the first player to ever get a $50 million a year contract. So what we might be looking at 10 for 500 mil, something like that. I don't know, but he's going to get a huge contract, but maybe the Red Sox are going to be able to dip into that pool. Who knows? But I can only dream, because man, right now, other than Rafael Devers, this team is going to be a slog to watch this year. But that will kind of wrap things up as far as for the Red Sox. Now, as we close out the show, as we always do, we will go to our one big bet. And now we're going to get into the NFL playoffs here, because now it's the regular season's over and it's into the NFL playoffs. And in this one game that I actually, because some of these ones in the divisional round are a little skewed, because you're getting some of those 7 seeds playing those 2 seeds. But one game that I actually like, the lower seed in this one, is going to be the Tampa Bay Bucks over the Dallas Cowboys, because the Dallas Cowboys haven't been back to a NFC, not even a Super Bowl, but they haven't been back to an NFC championship since 1995, when I was 4 years old. That's how long it's been for the Cowboys to be back to a NFC championship. So needless to say, yes, they've made some playoffs over the years, but they just haven't been able to get out of the wild card round or out of the divisional round. And I know this has not been Tampa Bay's best year, and this was Tom Brady's first uh, losing season, but Tampa had already clinched the playoffs. So whatever, if you want to kind of give him that asterisk because it finished at 500 and he really didn't play much last week. But in this one, I do like the Bucs over the Cowboys because it's Tom Brady in the playoffs, and it's the Dallas Cowboys who tend to find ways to kick things away come playoff time. So I am going to take the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the money line. They're plus 120. And I am going to take the over, which is 45.5, and also give me the under. I'm sorry, the over with give me a Mike Evans touchdown, anytime touchdown in a same game parlay. That gives you plus 675 odds. So if you throw down a cool $20 on this one, because I'm not asking you to go put $100 on this. If you go with that parlay, you can walk away with a nice little $155 payment there. So that gives you a nice little weekend to go out and have some fun, go out, have a few drinks, and have a nice dinner. But yeah, so that's going to be my big bet of the week is going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over the Dallas Cowboys, which that's the Monday night game as well. So as far as maybe if you want to have, if you have a little bit more cash out there to allot it to one of these other playoff games out there, go right ahead, have at it. If you're going to bet on some of these other ones, I would probably take the Vikings over the Giants because I really don't see too many other upsets that could happen here. Possibly the Jags over the Chargers, but I just think Justin Herbert's going to be a little too much for the Jags. So if you're going to take that game, take the Chargers, and I would say take the under on that game, which is 47.5. But if you're betting on one of those Sunday games, I'll take the 440 game with the Vikings and the Giants, and I will take the Minnesota Vikings with the over at 48 points total and a Justin Jefferson touchdown as well. So if you same game parlay that with a Justin Jefferson anytime touchdown. And actually, if you do the same game parlay, it knocks it up to 48.5. So if you take the 48.5 on the over and a Justin Jefferson touchdown, that gets you to plus 400. So if you, all right. So actually, hang on one second here. All right, so placing $20 on that game gets you to 255. Oh, that could be right. Okay, that gets you to $100 even. Sorry about that. It calculated with that. So, but if you if you parlay these two bets in this one, and you place a $20 bet, that you could actually win $775 because that's actually I I think I might be running the bank with this one this weekend. So might be placing $20 on that one for the Vikings and the over and the Bucks in the over on this one. So that's going to be your one big bet this week. Again, remember the main bet that I placed on there is going to be that the Buccaneers over the Cowboys with the over and a Mike Evans touchdown. All right, folks. Well, that is going to do it for this week's show. As again, we will keep you up to date with anything going on in the Patriots offseason. If there have been any updates on the coaching carousel and movement with the Patriots offensive coaching staff. Of course, anything going on with the Boston Red Sox, which hopefully maybe we get some good news in return now that we've gone through all this nightmarish offseason minus the Devers situation where we get one good thing. Maybe we'll be able to report that they've actually found some middle infielders and an outfielder that can actually play baseball for you and have some updates there as well. And of course, next week we'll get back into the Celtics and the Bruins as well to break down their seasons, as both of them are into the excuse me, halfway point of this season. And of course, as always, you can join us at 8 o'clock every Wednesday night. We live stream it right here on YouTube, or you can go to the Spotify. You can go to Spotify or SoundCloud and find the show there. Remember to hit the like and subscribe when you're on the podcast in any of those formats. And if here in YouTube as well, hit the like and subscribe with the bell for any notifications. You can always hit me up in the live chat here on the stream, or if you would rather, you can always send me questions to any of my personal handles here on Twitter and Instagram. It's Sean_Met28 for both Twitter and Instagram. And then for the show accounts on Twitter, it's NE Sports Weekly. And on Instagram, it's NE Sports WK. And send me any questions there and follow each of the accounts for any updates on anything going on in the Boston sports scene as well. All right, folks. Well, you have a good rest of your week, and I will see you next Wednesday for another jam-packed episode of New England Sports Weekly.